This training is going to talk about the outreach tools for Fireside, including sending newsletters proactively and also managing your website. The first thing we're going to talk about is files, which are things that you might want to upload. Maybe that's a one-pager about an issue, maybe that's a flyer for an event. To get to the files page, go to Website Files. That'll take you here. To add a brand new file, go ahead and click this blue plus button in the top right-hand corner. That's going to take you to the Add File page. From here, you can go ahead and choose the file type, give it a name, give it a description, and then go ahead and choose the file that you would like to upload. The next thing that you can do is you can also associate an issue with this file. So on your website, you have different issue pages. So for example, here's a sample issue page, and you can see there are related files at the bottom. Those related files get created here. So when you go ahead and choose one of these issues, those are your published issues, then that file, once you upload it, will show up on that special issue page. So I'm going to choose immigration and then click save. What that's going to do is that's going to upload the file onto your Fireside website, and it will also show up on this files page right here. The direct link to it is going to be in this column right here on the right, and we can talk about using it later. Perhaps you want to attach it in an email or something. The next thing we're going to talk about is photos. So if we go to Website, Photos, then that's going to pull up the Photos page. Your photos are organized into albums, and then inside of those albums are all the different photos. You can either click into an album to add a photo, or you can click the plus button and then choose New Photo to actually add a photo. First, you'll want to choose the album that you want to add it into. Then you're going to go ahead and give it a name and a description, and then you're going to go ahead and choose that file. So I'm going to choose this nice picture of some penguins, and then I'm going to hit Upload Photo. And what that's going to do is that's going to upload the photo, and at the bottom here you can click View an Album. What you'll see is now this is the album page. On the left-hand side, you'll see a thumbnail of that photo. It does take a few minutes for that photo to fully render inside Fireside, so you won't see that thumbnail right away, but you will see it pretty quickly. On the right-hand side are the different links to viewing the actual URLs for the photo. Fireside generates different sizes for images, and so you can click on any of those links to go to the 4 different sizes. That's step 1 of adding a photo. The first step is to upload it to Fireside, and then the second step is to use it, that we'll talk about later in this video. The next thing we're going to talk about now is surveys. So if we go to Website, Surveys, that's going to take us to our Surveys page. Surveys are forms that you can build on your website that allow you to collect information from your constituents. To create a new survey, go ahead and click the blue plus button on the right-hand side. What you'll first see is it will ask you for a form name, and so we're going to give that a name. That's going to be the title of the web page. Then we're going to go ahead and click Create. So now we've got our new test survey, and then we pre-selected a few fields that are already created by default for surveys, and those are email address and the opt-in status. We'll talk about them in just a sec. But starting at the top, we've got this edit header text. That's intro text at the start of the survey. So if you click edit header text, you have this editor and you can type in new text. When you're done, you can go ahead and click save, and then that's going to add in that intro text to the header. These next 2 options are email address and opt-in. Email is required because we have to match against some sort of data in order to create profiles for the people that fill out the survey. Below that is opt-in, and that is not optional, but we do recommend it. We also recommend leaving these settings. So they make the field required and hidden with a default value of yes. What that means is that when people fill out the survey, they'll silently be opted in, and in order to get approval for that, just be sure and add in a little bit of text at the bottom of the form that says, hey, by filling out the survey, you agree to receive periodic updates. And you do that here. At the bottom it says edit footer text, and that's where you can put that disclaimer. Works just like the header. You can also add in confirmation text after people fill out the survey. Just click that box to edit that text. But you're thinking, hey, I might want to collect a little bit more than email, and you're completely right. In order to do that, what you're going to want to do is go ahead and add new fields. In our survey editor, fields and questions are largely identical. So go ahead and click Insert Field, and then it's going to ask you what you want to insert. If you want to just add some text, you can click Text Block. That works just like the header. You probably are going to want to add in existing fields. So for example, we have fields for a whole number of different things. Very common ones are going to be like name. So you might want to add in first name, or go ahead and add in last name. What that's going to do is that's going to add in those questions. As you'll see, I've got last name first and then first name, which is somewhat confusing. So if you hover over these multiple dots, you can click and drag to rearrange the items. The next thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to probably want to ask some new question. And if there's something that you don't have, what you can do is you can click Insert Field and then choose to create a new field, which is basically adding a new question to this survey. First, you'll want to choose the field type. Most of these are straightforward, but the ones I want to point out are multi-select and single select. What those are is it's basically a multiple choice question where you can either have checkboxes to select a few or single select to pick only one. We're going to go with a multi-select. Next thing you have to do is you have to give it a field name. That's what's going to show up in Fireside. If you see on this right-hand side, it's got the field name. Those cannot have any spaces, and they should be descriptive, so you wouldn't want it to say like question 1. Instead, you'd want it to say like immigration support, for example. And then the text shown on the form that's the actual question text that the constituents will see, and you'll see in other places in Fireside. So that might be something like that. When you've got that question done, go ahead and click Create, and that's going to add a new field to the survey. It's also going to show up on every single person's profile, and you've got that question. That said, you don't have any answers for that question yet. So what you'll want to do is you'll want to add in a response. So that response might be, yes, I support more immigration. What you can also do for multi-select fields is that you can associate this answer choice with an issue. So if somebody is saying, yes, I support more immigration, then you might have an issue code that is relevant to this. So maybe you have one on immigration, but maybe you have more specific ones on like immigration pro, immigration con, something like that. Those are all issue codes you can create. What you can also do is you can add in more responses. So yes, but in a limited way. And you can also associate that with an issue. And then you might add in different responses like, no, we should close our borders. And you can also associate that with an issue and hit save. When you've got that done, that creates that new question with those answers. And as people fill those out, those will go back on a person's profile that you can then build an audience to search for all of those answers. We'll talk about how to do that a bit later in this video. When you're done, what you can do is you can choose how you want the survey to go to. So if you click Send To, then by default it's going to come back into Fireside. If you wanted email notifications whenever someone filled it out, you can check this box, put in your email, and hit Save, and you'll get notified whenever somebody fills out the survey there as well. If you want to see what the survey looks like, you can go ahead and click this Preview button, and that's going to pull up your website, and it's going to show you exactly what the survey looks like. So in this case, we've got our intro text, we've got our question, that's a multi-select. Here are our different kind of demographic questions, and here's our submit. Back in Fireside, if you go ahead and hit the back button, that will take you back to the main surveys page. Surveys save automatically, so you don't have to hit any save button or anything. Once you do create surveys, however, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to publish it. You'll see this first one is not published. So if you go ahead and hit this snowman button, then you'll be able to hit publish this item, and that will actually publish the survey for you. Surveys are a great way to get information from constituents. They're also a great way to get people to opt in. So that can be very helpful before blackout when you can no longer send franked messages. Similarly to surveys, you might want to send out a survey by sending out a newsletter. So now we're going to talk about the newsletter tools. Those are located if you go to Outreach, Messages. What these are newsletter templates that we have created. So we've built a template for your office. We'll build as many as you like. The idea behind these is that we build a template that has the look and feel, and then you create the content by just replacing photos, replacing text. To get started, go ahead and hit the blue plus button, and that's going to pull up all the different templates that your office can use. What you'll do is choose the template and then go ahead and hit start, and that is going to create a brand new newsletter based off that template. We're going to start on the right hand side. This is going to have the from name, so typically this is going to be someone's name, like Representative John Smith. Then it's going to have a from email address. So offices sometimes will have a specific email address, so maybe like state, district, Congressman Smith at mail.house.gov, something like that. This next is the subject line, which you'll probably want to change every time. The next option here is audiences. So we'll talk about audiences later in the video, but audiences in this instance are who you're going to be sending this newsletter to. You probably have a subscribers audience, but you can search for audiences here. Once you've found one, go ahead and click the plus button to add that audience into who you're going to send. And if you no longer want to include it, you can hit the trash can icon to remove it. The last option is the delivery options. So once you've worked on your newsletter and you're ready to send it out, then you can go ahead and choose how you want it to send out. So you can either save it as a draft, send it as a test right now, deliver it immediately, or schedule delivery for a specific time. If you are going to schedule it for a specific time, do note that all times are in Eastern. So if you are not in Eastern time, this is in Eastern time, and so that's when you'll be sending it out. All right, so without further ado, let's get into actually editing the content. So on the left-hand sidebar, this is the actual newsletter itself. So what we've got here is the newsletter template. So as you'll see, we've got this lorem ipsum stock text, we've got some stock photos, and you probably want to replace those. So here's what you're going to want to do when you do that. If you don't like this text, real easy. All you have to do is highlight it and then just start typing the new text to replace it. That's probably the easiest thing to do, is to just work on it right here within this editor. However, we understand that sometimes that's not always the case. Maybe you get emailed a quote from somebody from Outlook. Maybe you do a draft in Word. Maybe you get content from someone who's not using this editor. Totally fine. If that's the case, what you'll want to do is go over to where that text is. So I've got this nice text from our Fireside blog, and so I want to copy this paragraph. So what you'll want to do is highlight the text you want to copy. I'm hitting Control-C to copy it, and then we're going to go back into Fireside, and now we're going to highlight the text that we want to replace. So I'm going to copy this text, and you might think, hey, I'll just hit paste and it'll work. It possibly will. However, sometimes there can be really weird formatting that gets carried over from Word or Outlook or different websites. To prevent that, what I recommend doing is using paste plain text. So our editor has these special buttons to paste content from different places. I recommend hitting this paste plain text button. What that will do is that will pull up a window where you can hit Control-V to paste in the content, and then go ahead and hit paste. What that will do is that will paste in just the content and strip out any of the formatting. You really want that because The formatting can mess up your newsletter and make it look really weird. So in order to prevent that, just paste in everything plain text and then use the simple tools in the editor to actually format the text. Once you've done that, the next thing that you might want to do is you might want to replace photos. So the first thing you're going to want to do is take out the placeholders. So every photo is wrapped inside of a table. If you see these tiny dotted lines surrounding the photo, that denotes a table. If you right-click on that, you can click Delete Table, and that will delete everything inside of it. In this case, that's the placeholder image. Now you put your cursor where you want the image to go, and then you go ahead and hit the Image Manager icon to pull up the photos. What that does is that pulls up all of the photo albums that you have in Fireside. If you think back earlier, we uploaded a photo. Now we're going to use that photo. So every office has an Upload Folder Hidden album, and then from there you can go ahead and choose the images that you would like to insert. What you'll see is a preview of the image on the right, and then below that there are these different sizes of the image as well. Those correspond to the different sizes in Fireside that we create. Generally, the thumbnail size is pretty darn small. The small size is pretty small, good for newsletters if you want text to wrap around it. The medium size is generally pretty good if you want like a full width image. And then the original size is good maybe on certain web pages or different things, but for newsletters, generally you don't want that unless you know that the original is pretty small. I'm going to go ahead and choose the small size. The next thing that you might want to include is you might want to check this Include Title button. What that does is that allows you to have a caption below the image. So that can be really helpful as well. So I've got my selections made, and then I'm going to go ahead and click Insert. When I do that, I've now inserted a photo. What you'll see is here's this image, and then below it is this line for the caption, and then it's all wrapped around this one dotted line, and that denotes the table that it's in. With pictures, you might think, hey, I can just click and drag here to make them bigger or smaller. However, I do not recommend doing that. What that's going to do is that's going to set a fixed width for the image and or the table, and that can really mess up your newsletter. So instead, you're going to want to resize images by right-clicking on them, choosing Properties, and then you can go ahead and change the width and height directly from this dialog box. So maybe we want to make this, instead of 240 pixels, we want to make it 260 pixels, right? We want it just a little bit bigger. The height is going to change automatically, and then you can go ahead and hit OK. And what that's going to do is that's going to make our image just a little bit bigger. Another thing that you can do with images is you can have text wrap around them. In order to do that, you need to make it know whether you want it to go on the left or the right. So to do that, right-click on the dotted line surrounding the image, click Table Properties, and then what you're going to want to do is change the alignment from nothing to center. Once you've got that, go ahead and hit OK, and that's going to center the image. But then if you wanted to have the text wrap around it, go ahead and right-click again, click on Table Properties, and then go ahead and change the alignment to left or right, and then hit OK. Now what we've done is now we've said, hey, that image is going to go on the right, and now this text is going to wrap around it on the left. Once you've worked out your newsletter, you've gotten all your images good, you've gotten your text all set, the next thing you're going to want to do is you're probably going to want to test it. So I recommend changing this delivery option to send a test. You can go ahead and put in your email that you'd like to send the test to there, and then you can go ahead and hit Next to actually send that text. What you'll see when you hit Next is there's going to be a confirmation screen. It's going to tell you who it's going to go to, and it'll give you a quick in-browser preview of it as well. So that can be helpful for you to take a look at. If you want to get the actual email, then you can just go ahead and hit Send Test, and that's going to send that test email to you. If you decide, oh shucks, I forgot to change the subject line or something, no worries, you can hit this back button to go back, and then that will take you right back to the page that you were on with all the content that you'd worked on. If you need to run to a meeting, I recommend hitting Save as Draft, and then go ahead and hitting Save. And what that's going to do is that's just going to save the message. To get back into it from this newsletter messages page, click on Saved, and that's going to pull up the messages that you've saved. And then you can just click on the name of it to reopen it again. After you've sent out a newsletter, you probably want to see how it did. So if you go over here to Outreach and then click on Statistics, that's going to pull up our statistics page. So this tracks how many newsletters that you've sent out, what the open rate is, the click-through rate, all that other fun stuff. So from here you can take a look at this data and see, hey, are shorter subject lines better, are longer subject lines better, is sending in the morning better than at night, all those sort of considerations. This has the information right on this page. The next thing that we're going to talk about is audiences. So we've talked about it a little bit before, but audiences are structured searches of people that are in Fireside, and then you can use them to do different things. So in this case, we've talked about using them to send them an email. So to build an audience, if we go to Outreach Audiences, that's going to pull up our Audiences page. To make a new one, go ahead and hit the blue plus button. And then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to give the audience a title. And then you're going to want to choose who you want to put in the audience. So in this case, maybe we want to restrict it to people just in our district, so you can check that box. And then you want to choose people to put in your audience. So if you want to find, hey, we had this survey created and we've sent it out, what you can do is you can click this drop down and you can scroll down by the different categories that we have. And then you can go ahead and choose survey as a category, and then you can find all the people that match that survey. That can be a helpful way to find those people. But since no one filled that out, let's use a different example for this. You can also do things like find people who are in a certain county. So to do that, if you go to home address county is equal to, and maybe we're going to use Bexar County as an example. And then if we had anybody that matched that, we can go ahead and hit this refresh button, and that's going to tell you how many people actually match the criteria that you have set out. In this case, I don't think Bexar County is in the district, so it's not going to find anybody. If you want to add in additional criteria, you can click this plus button to add in an additional row, or click the minus button to remove it. And then below that, you can also exclude people using those exact same criteria. Once you've gotten the criteria created, you can go ahead and hit save, and that's going to save the audience in the system and allow you to use it. One thing to note about audiences is that they are dynamic. So if suddenly new people match the audience criteria, maybe new people fill out the survey, they'll be automatically added to the audience as well. The last thing that you can do with audiences is you can export them. So if you hover over the audience, click on their snowman button, then you can go ahead and say view people matching criteria. And what that's going to do is that's going to pull up the audience results and all the people that are in the audience. In this case, that's nobody, but they would show up in this list right here. Then at the top, you can click the snowman button, and then you can choose export this audience. What that's going to do is that's going to pull up a long list of all the different fields in Fireside that you can export. The default list is eManager ID, first name, last name, email address, and opt-in. You can go ahead and uncheck any of those, but if you are going to re-import into Fireside, I highly recommend leaving this ID column. When that's done, you can hit export, and that is going to export the audience to a CSV file that you can open in Excel. Audiences are used in a number of different places, and so they're kind of global things for the office, but they are very, very helpful, although they can be somewhat of a challenge to construct more complicated ones. If you do need help with that, go ahead and hit this chat button in order for us to help you with the chat. Shifting gears a little bit, the next thing I want to talk about is the website. So if we go to Website, Pages, that's going to pull up your website pages. So these are pages on your website that are static and not really special in terms of design. So maybe that is your about page with your biography, or different pages on different committees or caucuses that you're on. What you want to do is, if you want to make a new page, go ahead and click this blue plus button. Folders are what pages are grouped into. Generally, you don't need to make a new folder. You'll probably want to just add a page. What you can do is you can give the page a name. So maybe we haven't created our biography page yet, so we're going to do that. Then the next thing you'll want to do is choose the directory. That's the exact same thing as a folder. So you'll want to scroll down until you find the directory that you want to put it in. In this case, I'm going to put it in the biography directory. And then the page URL is going to be right here. And that's going to be everything that's after .house.gov for your website. So the directory is biography, so it might be /biography, and then it'll say /biography-for-me.htm. It's going to autofill that in for you, but that's what the page URL is going to be if you wanted to change that for some reason. When you're done, go ahead and hit save, and that will create that brand new page. Within that page, you probably want to start editing it. So if you go ahead and hit body text in that page, that's going to pull up the page for you to edit. So now we've got this page, and we can say, this is my bio for me. Great, now we've got our wonderful bio. If you can tell, this is the exact same editor as our newsletter, so everything that applies there will apply here. Then you can go ahead and hit save. What that's going to do is that's going to save that brand new page. And then if you want to see it, you can go ahead and hit the snowman button, and then you can say view page. And that is going to take you to a page on your website that has the content that you created. In this case, I've got the page title, and then this is the page content. The next thing that we're going to talk about are things that are very similar, but they're issue pages. So your office probably has a collection of issue statements and positions on various things like immigration, education, defense, the budget, all that fun stuff. So those special pages, we've looked at them a little bit earlier at the beginning of the video. If you go to website issues, that's going to pull up all of these different issue pages. So these issue pages, if you want to add a new one, just hit the plus button, but you'll probably already have them. So all you really need to do is click on one of them to edit them. So we're going to edit this military issue. So it's the exact same editor as everything else. We can add in any new text. And then if you want to change the issue name, that's used internally, or the title, which is used publicly, as well as a description of it. Then you can go ahead and hit save, and that's going to save any of those changes to this issue page. These issues show up again on your website. They're all generated right from here. Another thing that issues have is they have news items in them, and we'll talk about creating those next. So this is probably what you'll spend most of your day doing, or at least once a day or once a week. You might be creating press releases and news items. So if you go to website, news, that's going to pull up the news page. So from here, these are all the press releases, opinion pages, editorials, any content that you put out on your website on a regular basis is probably going to be a news item. So all your news items are going to show up in this list. To create a new one, go ahead and click this blue plus button to add a new news item. What you'll see here is the exact same editor, and so you can go ahead and add the content here. On the right hand side, you can choose different things about it. So you can choose the type. In this case is the press release. You can go ahead and put in the date, so we're going to add that in right here. And then you can choose the date line, and then the headline, and then the sub headline. And then you can also add in the summary text. On many folks' websites, but not necessarily everyone's, this summary box is what's used to create a Twitter card. And so if you want that summary you can put in text there, and then Twitter will pull that as sort of read more text just from inside Twitter. The next thing that you can do with news items is news items have issues, so you can tag these issue pages. So similarly to how we tag that file with immigration, we can tag this news item on immigration. Maybe it's a press release on immigration. Then you also can choose to associate files and photos with the news item. So certain websites will have photos that display with news items. So if that's you, you can go ahead and choose that image here. And then you also can associate a file. Maybe you have a press release that wants to include a one-pager. You can choose that here. And then finally, you can also add in any contact information about who to contact with regards to this press release. Once you've made all these changes, go ahead and hit save, and that's going to save the press release. However, it won't put it on your website. That just saves it internally in Fireside. When you're ready to publish it, all you need to do is go ahead and click the snowman button for that item, and then go ahead and click share this document. And what that will do is that will pull up this feature that will let you publish it to the website. Certain offices will also use our feature tools, which just put select items that are featured on the website. And then if you'd like, you can choose to share via email. So you can create it once on the website and then quickly send it out to your list of press contacts. And then if you'd like, you can connect Facebook and Twitter, and then you can share the press release right from within Fireside. When that's done, you can go ahead and click share, and then that will send out the press release to all the places that you specified. Once you've gone ahead and shared that out, then you can go on and move to the next type of thing that you would like to do. If you want to find old press releases, you can search by the headline here, and you also have filters on the right-hand side based on the news type, the issue, and then whether it's featured, and then you can narrow it down by date as well. This page can be very powerful for tracking all of your public statements. What we've gone over in this video is all of the Fireside outreach tools, including how to manage your website, send out press releases, send out newsletters, and manage audiences of people. As with anything, if you have any questions at any time, you can go ahead and hit this leave a message to chat with us, and we'll talk with you. You can also hit this chat icon here, and that will pull up more help information and ways to get in contact with us. We've got some really helpful outreach tutorials for you.